Hi, I'm Acting Chief Matt Hayen with the Big Lake Police Department, and I'm proud to present the 2020 Annual Report. The Big Lake Police Department Mission Statement. The members of the Big Lake Police Department display pride in the community we are entrusted to protect, provide service with compassion and dignity, and exhibit the highest level of integrity in all aspects of our lives. In 2020, we had 14 full-time sworn officers and 2 administrative staff. We also had 1 canine. The staff consisted of the Chief of Police, Chief Joel Scharf, and he's been with the department for 9 years. Deputy Chief of Police, Matt Hayen. I've been with the department since 2016. We move on to the patrol sergeants. Sergeant Sam Olson. Sergeant Olson began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2003. Sergeant Tom Kukala began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2017. Then we move on to the patrol officers. Officer Chris Horde, he began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2006. Officer Todd Siebert began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2007. Officer Sam Norland began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2011. Officer Guy Chafee began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2014. His canine partner Bruno began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2017. Officer Joe Kalla began his career with the Big Lake Police Department as a full-time police officer in 2015. Officer Silas Reek began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2018. Officer Tyler Hecht began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2020. And Officer Tim Michelson began his career at the end of 2020 with a start date after the first of the year in 2021. In investigations, we have Investigator Rich Berg. He began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 1997. Investigator Nick Pergy began his career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2015. Then on the administrative side, we have Office Manager Tina Peterson. Office Manager Tina Peterson began her career with the Big Lake Police Department in 2003. Then we have Administrative Assistant Nicole Pearson. Administrative Assistant Nicole Pearson began her career with the Big Lake Police Department in mid-2020. Big Lake Police Officer staffing 2006 to 2020. So as you can see by this chart, in 2006 we had 14 full-time police officers, so we were fully staffed. Over the course of the next 6 years after that, the police department diminished in officers due to the recession. But then the 6 years following that, the police department was able to regain those officers that we were missing during that time. So in 2020, we were back up to 14 officers. We had 2 staff changes in 2020. In 2020, Lori Morris retired after 20 years of service to the Big Lake Police Department. We received over 280 applications to fill her position. We chose Nicole Pearson, who was working for Maple Grove Police at that time, and she's been an excellent fit to our department. Officer Tyler Sinclair accepted a position in a larger agency closer to the metropolitan area. Officer Tim Michelson was hired at the end of 2020 but did not start until after the first of the year in 2021. Officer Michelson has 5 years experience with an agency in Missouri, and he's been a seamless transition to our department. Big Lake Police Department staffing versus comparable cities. So right now, Big Lake Police has 1.2 officers per 1,000 residents. Other cities with a similar population from 10,000 to 25,000 people have 1.4 officers per 1,000 residents. So within the next couple years, we are looking to add an additional officer on to help get those numbers up, so we're up with the way that other agencies are in the area. Total calls for service was corresponding population. In 2012, our population was right around 10,247, and calls for service were at 7,104. Over the next 4 years, our population increased slightly to 10,638, but our calls for service went up drastically to 12,036. 4 years after that, going into 2020, our population again increased slightly to 11,494, but our calls for service continued to go up on a high rate to 15,429. A lot of that was the difference in documenting calls as well for self-initiated activity. 2020 calls for service by day of the week. Monday and Friday, we typically see more calls come in, with 16% of the calls for service for the year. And Friday is leading into the weekend, so it generates more calls typically. And on Monday, there's calls that come in from the weekend that weren't reported during the weekend if when people get home or different things occur. After that, Tuesday is the next highest, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday are at 14% of calls for service, and Sunday is at the lowest amount at 11%. Federal and state has 2 index categories for crimes. Part 1 index crimes, like serious offenses such as rape, murder, aggravated assault, robbery, arson, human trafficking, criminal sexual conduct, and others. And then there's also Part 2 index crimes, and those are property type crimes such as theft, vandalism, public order, liquor violations, and others. With the Part 1 and Part 2 index crimes, you can see by the graph here where Big Lake compares to agencies and communities are around us. For Big Lake, we are at 543 Part 1 crimes, or the serious crimes, and 3,248 Part 2 crimes, or like the property type of crimes. So again, you can see that we're pretty low in comparison to agencies around our area. In 2020, the city of Big Lake was ranked the 2nd safest city in Minnesota, with a population over 10,000. The other communities that made the top 5 list are Orono, Big Lake, South Lake Minnetonka, Minnetrista, and Stillwater. So that's very exciting. We typically go back and forth with Orono on the first and second spots for the ranking. Clearance rates, cases cleared by prosecution. State of Minnesota average is about 55% of the cases are actually prosecuted. For the Big Lake Police Department, we have an 85% clearance rate. Summons issued. These includes tickets for traffic offenses, minor criminal offenses, and city ordinance violations. In 2020, you can see that we were pretty consistent with previous years, except for 2019, where we had a rise in summons issued. In 2020, we had 983. 2019, there was 1,193. And then 2018 had 966. Arrests by service category. The different categories that we have for this are domestic assault arrests, DWIs, felony narcotics, warrant arrests, and total arrests. In 2020, we had 24 domestic assault arrests, followed by 68 DWI arrests, 46 felony narcotic arrests, 40 warrant arrests, and 190 total arrests. One part that stands out to me is the DWI arrests that actually went down a little bit from 2019, and a lot of this had to do with the COVID pandemic. Many bars and restaurants and venues were closed during that time, so there was less traffic out on the roadways and less people drinking and driving. People would still drink at home and may still drive, but the amount of drivers drinking and driving went down. Another number that I noticed that went down is the warrant arrests, and the reason behind that is because many agencies did not accept warrants in their jails or facilities due to the COVID pandemic. So a lot of the warrants were quashed, or the individual could just get a court date for it. One question that we do get asked quite frequently is, where do the people we have contact with come from? And the 2 main ones that I get asked are DWI arrests and felony narcotics arrests. DWI arrests are about 50% of Big Lake residents who get arrested for DWIs, and the other 50% are out of the city of Big Lake. However, felony narcotics arrests, we only see about 11% of Big Lake residents being arrested for narcotics, where 89% of them are from other areas around here. So a lot of people just coming through. We do a lot of traffic enforcement on Highway 10 and on Highway 25 for the people coming through on 94 down 25 to Highway 10. stopping off at the gas station, stuff like that. So that's where we see a lot of our narcotic arrests come from. Return to duty program, ATVs. A couple years ago, we were able to acquire two 2013 850 Sportsman ATVs from the military. And then in 2020, we acquired a up-armored vehicle, a Humvee, from the military. This vehicle is used for negotiations, search and rescue, active shooter response, recovery, emergency management, and is a regional resource for neighboring agencies. When we receive these, the only thing that we had to pay for is shipping from wherever the items were at in another state. We just have to ship them to our police department, and we just pay for that. Otherwise, there is no cost to the city or to the residents for any of these items. K-9 program. 2020 was Officer Chafee and K-9 Bruno's first full year as our K-9 team. Together, they had 52 deployments with 40 items seized. Items consisted of drug paraphernalia, marijuana, and methamphetamine. They have conducted over 100 hours of training. In early 2020, at their first trial certification, they received a trophy for top rookie dog as a new K-9 team, so it was very cool to see. Technology. The Big Lake Police Department prides itself on the current technology we provide and continue to attain. Every officer wears a body camera through Axon, and these are recorded for any calls for service that the officer is dispatched to or that they feel they need to turn on the camera for. We also have night and thermal vision, suppressed patrol rifles, Guardian Angel shoulder lights, and these are very nice to have during nighttime and severe weather like snowstorms. The officer has basically a blue light on their shoulder that allows motorists to see them better if they're out on the side of the road. We have unmanned aerial vehicle program, robot up-armored vehicle, and our squad lighting is designed for officer safety. UAV program. In 2020, the Big Lake Police Department sold the Mavic 2 Enterprise and Inspire UAVs and used those funds to purchase more updated and compact UAVs. We purchased the DJI Mini 2. It's the orange UAV on the upper picture. And then we also purchased the Autel Evo 2 Dual, which is the bottom one with the guards around the propellers. These are smaller UAVs that are more maneuverable. The Autel Evo 2 can be flown indoors. In 2020, we had 7 requests to utilize UAVs and missing persons or subject who fled from a scene, and 8 requests for community services. So these have come in very handy for both calls and for general use for the community. 2020 community engagement. In 2020, many of the community events the officers and staff would normally attend were canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of the activities and events officers and staff attended were birthday parades for adults and children who wanted to drive by for their birthday, the ATV runs in the spring and fall, chamber block party, and the Walk in My Own Her Shoes event. 2 of the events that were canceled was the Spudfest event and Night to Unite. Big Lake Police Fleet Overview. Annually, officers patrol nearly 180,000 miles on city roadways. Big Lake has 70 miles of city roadways, not including state and county roads. The Big Lake Police Department maintains a fleet of vehicles which suit unique needs for our community. In 2020, our fleet comprised of Ford Explorer Interceptors and Dodge Chargers. Our department has 2 Polaris 850 Sportsman 4-wheelers, a snowmobile, and a boat. All these vehicles were acquired through the U.S. military return to duty program at no cost except for the shipping. They are used for search and rescue, patrolling bike trails and parks, community police, and winter events. We maintain a replacement program which places new vehicles into patrol for 3 years, followed by 2 years of service with an investigator chief or other staff. Vehicles are then either auctioned off or assigned to City Hall for use by them or various departments. This allows for minimizing major repair expenses and provides a strong resale value of the vehicles once they're done with the police department. Big Lake Police Department goals for 2021. Our number 1 goal is officer wellness. We want to ensure officers' health and mental health remain a top priority in the department. Continue to encourage the use of our mental health resources and gym memberships to stay healthy and active. Staffing, continue to keep and grow staffing levels to better serve our community. such as maintaining a minimum of 2 officers for 24/7 coverage. Proactive policing, continue with proactive policing to help reduce and prevent crimes from occurring in our community, such as narcotics offenses, DWI offenses, and burglaries and vehicle tampering. Community engagement. We want to continue to grow positive interactions with our community by utilizing social media, attending events, and effective communication. Partnerships. Continue to grow and maintain relationships with other public safety entities to effectively provide resources and services to our community. Equipment. Continue to ensure a robust capital improvement strategy and research the latest technology to help keep our officers safe in a cost-effective manner. And lastly, succession planning. Continue with the process of building individuals to fill key positions within the department. This annual report is dedicated and in memory of Councilmember Rose Johnson, who lost her life tragically in 2020. Thank you for watching the 2020 annual report. The Big Lake Police Department is committed to ensuring the residents of Big Lake are provided with the best services available. Thank you.